Premier, how do you account for the 28
from your phone to Mr. DiGirolamo on the very night that you, or the very day that you supposedly received this gift? How do you explain that?
Well, I know nothing about that call. It may well have been that I was returning an earlier call received, whether that day or other days, from Mr. DiGirolamo.
It's only 28 seconds, Premier.
Well, that's the point. I don't know what that call was about. What I do know is that we did not receive a bottle of 1959.
Could you have been thanking him for the wine? Couldn't you? Isn't it possible? Because even in there you said, I don't believe so, I don't recall, I checked with my wife. Isn't it possible that you did receive a bottle of wine from a courier and that you did make a phone call to Mr. DiGirolamo thanking him for that?
My evidence could not have been clearer. I did not receive a bottle of 1959 Grange.
I did not receive a bottle of Grange.
Excuse me. Can I actually finish the questions? I did not receive a bottle of 1959 Grange. I did not receive that gift, and therefore there was no thank you call.
You're saying you weren't home to receive the gift? You're saying you weren't home to receive the gift? You're saying you weren't home to receive the gift?
Well, no. What I said on that day was that day on the 20th of... So we're talking about the phone call, Josh, or are we talking about other days?
Well, on the day was meant to deliver.
Well, we don't know what date. So this is part of the issue. So what we do know is that for 4 days over the Easter, the house was effectively empty because we're on the Gold Coast. The problem here is that I was on the Gold Coast, not holidaying in New South Wales. The fact is that we don't know when it was alleged to have been delivered. What I do know, what I know, what my wife confirms, is that no 1959 bottle of Grange was received by us. But more importantly, what has already been given in evidence to the Independent Commission Against Corruption around this matter is that the handling of Australian water issues by my government has been above board, with due process and at arm's length, because it was left to Sydney Water to make the decision.
So Nick was lying when he... So Nick was saying... So what Nick was saying was a lie, that you called him to say thank you. He was lying when he said that under evidence.
They're matters for the Commission to determine. But what I've done today is assist the Commission by giving them my evidence, and my evidence is very clear that if a 1959 bottle of Grange Hermitage had arrived on my doorstep, I would have memory of it.
So your evidence
if it had been overlooked then, when I moved house in August, it might have been noticed. The fact is, I did not receive a 1959 bottle of Grange. There was no thank you call. I did not receive that gift. And importantly for the people of this state, the dealings with Australian Water on the issue of their PPP was handled appropriately.
So why did you call Nick DiGirolamo at 9:30 at night?
Well, I don't know. I can only speculate that it might have been a return phone call for phone calls received, but I have no knowledge of that phone call. I have no knowledge of that phone call. The knowledge I have is that I did not receive a 1959 bottle of Grange.
Can you see how the public's going to look at this, though? They're going to hear that a phone call was made saying thank you, and then you make a phone call at 9:30 at night.
Well, Liz,
it doesn't look good for you.
But Liz, Bridget, Bridget, I'm very clear about the evidence I gave to the Independent Commission Against Corruption, and I stand by that evidence.
But do you concede, though, that it's not a good look for you, that the public is going to look at this and possibly not believe you because of this? They've got phone records that you called Nick DiGirolamo at 9:30 at night.
Well, there's a record of a 28-second communication. We don't know what it was. I have no knowledge of it.
We don't know whether it was audio or text.
Well, I don't. You're obviously more advanced technologically than I am, Quentin. But
28-second phone call.
But thank you for that, Quentin. You're more technologically advanced than I do. But I have no knowledge of that call. I can speculate, but I have no knowledge. It would be pure speculation. But the knowledge. But Bridget, the knowledge I have is the assistance I provided to the Independent Commission Against Corruption when I made it clear that that bottle of wine was not received. But hang on, Andrew, can I come back to Bridget's substantive question? The point here is that the public of New South Wales, on the evidence presented to the Independent Commission Against Corruption by Sydney Water, can be confident that in the handling of the matters involving Australian Water Holdings, it was handled appropriately, and as the council assisting said in his opening address, the agreement that was reached with Sydney Water, determined by the Sydney Water on its own, not directed by government, was a commercial interest that effectively killed for all time the public-private partnership that under the former government had been the source of such angst and activity.
Premier, if a Premier received a $3,000 gift from someone he was about to meet and did not declare it, should he or she resign?
Well, there are rules, Andrew, and I'm confident that throughout my time in Parliament I have abided by those rules, including recently when an international education provider came into my office and at the end of a meeting with myself, with advisors, with other ministers, presented me with a pen, which clearly was over the limit. That pen was handed over to Department of Premier and Cabinet officials and is lodged in the usual way.
But Premier, if it was proven that a Premier had received that gift and not declared it, should they have to resign?
Well, Andrew, the rules say that gifts should be declared or gifts should be handed over. The point here is I did not get that bottle of wine. There was no gift. That's my evidence to the Commission today. That's the evidence I stand behind.
How do you explain the records of the courier delivering it to your house?
Well, the records of the courier. The records of the courier suggest that it was delivered on Good Friday.
That's just a receipt.
Well, you know, I can't speculate what may or may not have happened. But what I can say with certainty is what I know. And what I know is I didn't receive that bottle of wine. What I know is my wife confirms that we didn't receive a bottle of wine. And whilst we aren't wine aficionados, as I said, you know, a $25 bottle of Brokenwood's an expensive bottle of wine for me. You know, we would have recognised that if a 1959 bottle of Grange had turned up, that it was valuable, and I would have declared it both on my parliamentary return and on my ministerial return.
As things stand at the moment, Mr Premier, we've got Mr Di Girolamo's evidence that he did send you, purchased from vintage sellers and had purchased and sent to you this bottle of wine. You say you did not receive it. Rosemary can't remember receiving it. You say you can't recall any phone call at the time.
Well, no. What I'm saying is I don't know what that phone call was about. Okay. If indeed it was a phone call.
But don't you think
at the moment we've got a mystery bottle of wine?
Well, no. At the moment there's reference to a mystery bottle of wine. There's no dates as to when it was allegedly delivered. What we know for certainty is not only do my wife and I have clear recollection that no such bottle of wine was received, but that over the period it was supposed to have been delivered, which is vague. What's not vague is that my family spent most of that period in Queensland.
How much damage has this done to you, having to come down and appear before a corruption inquiry and now answer these questions?
I'm absolutely delighted to be here because it sets an example for everyone else. Part of my frustration as Premier of the State is the fact that when it comes to shootings, people won't come forward and cooperate with police. Part of my frustration with the way in which our justice system operates is too often witnesses won't come forward. Well, here today, we've got demonstration, whether you're a public servant, whether you're a private citizen or the Premier, if ICAC seeks your assistance, it's your duty to attend, to give honest evidence. That's what I've done today, and if that sets an example for others, that's a good thing for this country.
You were
far closer to Nick Di Girolamo than you initially led us to believe, Premier.
No.
And how much do you regret letting him get so close to you?
Well, no. As I say, I don't think the characterisation of that relationship has changed at all. It is, as I said, someone who I was first introduced to around a concept in the northwest sector that was about the release of land, that was about supply of housing and housing affordability. Someone I then started to notice at Liberal Party fundraising events. But what's important here...
But you're calling each other once a month on your own evidence.
And at 9:30 at night, you don't just ring associates at 9:30 at night.
You told Parliament and the press on numerous occasions that you couldn't remember the last time you spoke to Mr Di Girolamo.
But the point about
that you're calling him once a month.
Well, I don't believe I called him once a month throughout the whole period. But the point, can I can I make to you, Sean, is that normally, as I said in the Commission, the calls that I made were return calls to him. As the Commission itself has said, as a former Minister has said, there was lobbying going on, and as file notes show that was happening. What's important here, though, is that the way in which the substantive issue was dealt with was appropriate. That was also my evidence today, and that's another reason why I'm glad to be here.
We have his version and we have your version, and the documentary evidence favours him. Why should we believe you?
Well, you know, the documentary evidence can't tell us when the bottle of wine was delivered. What we know by my evidence is that we spent Easter on the Gold Coast. I came back a day early. What we do know is the evidence that I've given the Independent Commission Against Corruption, that if I had received a bottle of 1959 Grange, I'd remember it. I did not receive that gift.
You're betting your premiership on this, aren't you? It won't turn up and there'll be no receipt.
I'm giving honest advice. And can I just make the point, as someone who, almost a year before the election campaign, embarked upon a health and fitness campaign to get himself fit for the election, as someone who throughout that election campaign barely drank a drop, and someone who to this day would be lucky to have more than a glass a week, wine, whether expensive wine or cheap wine, is not something that's ever been one of my vices for the last 4 years.
What do you suspect happened to that bottle of wine?
I don't know what happened to that bottle of wine, but what I do know is it wasn't received by me, and that's confirmed by my wife.
Do you think it's stolen off your doorstep?
I can't and won't speculate about it, because you can't speculate about things you don't know.
Given the chain of dates, though, do you concede you...
Sorry, Josh?
Did you have a number of breakfast meetings with Mr Di Girolamo?
Not to the best of my knowledge. I imagine that the only breakfast meetings, I'm not a great breakfast meeting person because I go to the gym most times in the morning, but would have been, if they did occur, party fundraisers. But from memory, Josh, there were no party fundraisers that I've seen on any list that involved him through that period.
You certainly appeared to be caught out in there today, Mr O'Farrell. You appeared to be caught out in there
What
today.
On?
With the chain of events with those dates and the strange coincidence of...
Well, no, I actually thought I accounted for myself well. You know, a number of dates had been put to me in relation to this matter. I know that on the 21st I left to go to the Gold Coast for the first break that I had after the election campaign. I know that on the 20th I was at a dinner after leaving the office. I know that I returned on the evening of the 24th to come back for the Anzac services on the 25th. So I can account for that, but more importantly, Jean, I can say here what I said inside, which is that no bottle of 1959 Grange was received by me.
Well, did you get any bottle of... I mean, you keep going about 1959. Did you receive any bottle of wine, any gift, any bottle of Grange from Mr Di Girolamo?
No.
Okay. Any bottle of wine? No bottle of wine?
Well, you know, I'm not aware that I've ever received a bottle of wine from Australian Water Holdings. But to answer Andrew's question, and can I make the point, Lee, that the declaration requires gifts over a certain value to be declared. But I have thought about this. I've thought about this since the issue came up. I don't believe I've ever got a bottle of wine from Australian Water Holdings. And I say again what I very happily said to the Commission. If I had received a bottle of 1959 Grange, I would remember it. We did not get that bottle of wine.